All right, so check this out. The out here at the shop, I'm at the kind of like at the bottom of a hill, and believe it or not, if the grass is wet, I can barely get up this hill with an open diff in the rear. I've got an open differential and the Dana 60. Some came with track locks. Some of the older ones came with power locks, etc. But you know, it's pitiful. It's pitiful hardly being able to get up the hill when my little Ford Ranger can zip up and down no problems. So this is what we've got right now. I pulled the covers off, and let me get a flashlight. If you look, there are no clutch packs or anything in there. So this is open diff. I might keep the open diff and then stuff a lunchbox locker in there and sell it on eBay, or on my website I should say, not eBay. eBay costs too much. But that's what we're going to be doing. And looky here, I got a nice tight track lock. It even says it on the top here. Nice track lock, and you can see the clutches and stuff down in there and the springs that hold it in place. It feels tight, so I'm going to pull these bearings off and put the bearings that I'm running on the other carrier on it, because I know that it was set up and running with that. I don't know if you know what that is, but that is a lunchbox locker in my Dana 44. I forgot that it was in there, and so I had to text my son. I said, hey, did we put a lunchbox locker in your truck? Because, you know, he had this truck for 10 years before I had it. And he goes, yeah, you and I put that in there for four-wheeling and stuff. And he says, that's for the good old days. That's when, you know, that's fun. You know, that's before I had all kinds of responsibilities and stuff and I was working full-time. So he kind of reminisced, but he remembered putting it in. I didn't. It's still in good shape. So that's cool. We've got a locker in front, so if I ever need to engage it while retrieving a vehicle out of a cornfield somewhere, I've got it available. Plus, when I get the track lock in the rear, I'll be able to get up this sandy hill, or wet, soft hill, without embarrassing myself in the future. Okay, so I am going to document pulling the bearings and the gear off of this one and putting the original gear on it, and I'll show you the setup, the tools that I use, etc. Okay, let's get started on this here. Basically, I am going to pull the old ring gear off and the bearings on the new limited slip, or the new old limited slip I should say. This tool here is an awesome tool. If you're going to be doing any gear work, even if you're only going to be doing one, you could buy this kit or this tool for about $450 bucks. I got mine from Randy's Ring and Pinion, or now it's Randy's Worldwide. This here will allow you to pull bearings off without destroying them. And I'll show you how that's used. And like I said, you know, people want, if you go to a shop, they're going to want, you know, $1,200, $1,500 in order to change your gears. You could buy this, read a book, do a little bit of research, put your own gears in, and it would cost you less than half the cost to have somebody else do it. So definitely recommend that you get the tool, even if you're only going to do it once. because you could sell the tool if you don't think you're ever going to do another set of gears and make your money back. But these definitely, it's a cool tool to have. These clamshells work great. The red ones for the smaller bearings, for like on a pinion. So we'll go ahead and I'll film taking this apart, and then once we get to that, I'll also film taking out the carrier. All right, stay tuned. How cool was that? I mean, look at this. This tool is made specifically to do this. You're not going to have to try to put some kind of bearing puller on there or press off a bearing and destroy it in the process. This thing with this clamshell wraps around it, just yanks them out. This thing is gold, baby. Get you one of these. Okay, so basically both the old bearings are off, the old ring is off. So now we'll go to work on taking out the carrier that's in there now. Show you a little trick while the audio's on. Okay, these are your carrier bearings. You want to mark them. If you noticed here, it's kind of hard to see maybe. I took a chisel. You can use a chisel or a punch, and you mark the case and the bearing. You definitely don't want to mark the center, because then you can flip it upside down and screw everything up. So one mark on the left on the top of the bearing cap, 2 marks on the right top of the bearing cap. That way the bearing caps have to go back together. That's the way they were machined, and that's the way they've got to go back together. So I've already pulled out the axle shaft on the driver's side. Now I'm going to pull out the axle shaft on the passenger side. I'll pull these 2 caps off. Hopefully it doesn't give me any grief. It'll pop out of there with maybe a couple pry bars. But one thing I want to do before I do that is I'm going to test the backlash on this ring and pinion. You're going to want to check it. It's an old worn-in gear, so it won't match the setup requirements. However, when we put this thing all back together with the new carrier, if we can get close to the original backlash, then we know we're gold. We don't have to try to set up the new. If you set it up to the new specs of a new system being put in with the new backlash, you're going to create a new wear pattern, which will lead to excessive wear for one, and probably a lot of gear noise until it wears in. So you don't want it to be as tight as new. You want to set it up to the way it wore in. Okay? Let me get started. right, now we got the original carrier, the open carrier out. You're going to want to keep your bearing race and your bearings together. Also, there's shims underneath here for your backlash. You're going to want to keep those together and on the correct side of the carrier, whether it's on the ring gear side or the opposite side. The setup of a ring and pinion is determined by the shims. People get all frustrated and worked up about the shims and backlash and pinion depth and all that. Okay, let me tell you right now, to eliminate a lot of that grief and that worry, the carriers are very accurately machined. They are machined to a very tight tolerance, especially the new aftermarket ones. They are all pretty much close to being exactly the same. The reason you need shims is because the axle housing is cast, and casting is not a very precise process, so the casting has to be cut and milled to a general specification, and then the shims that you apply on the pinion and on the carrier is to make up for the error in the casting. So these shims are what it takes to make a precision ring and pinion and carrier fit in that casing, that cast casing. So 99% of the time, I haven't had one fail yet, you take these shims and spacers that were put in place for that axle housing, put them on the new differential, and it's going to come out exactly the same. All right, and like I said, we've got 16 thousandths backlash measurement when we pulled it out. I think that's at the maximum of what it's allowed to be anyway on new. So we're not going to try to tighten that up at all, because like I said, then we'll end up introducing a new wear pattern and other things into the axle, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to take these shims and bearings and put them into the new carrier, the new old carrier, and then everything should be almost exactly the same when we get it back together. And we'll test that, and we'll also run a pattern check on it when we're done. Okay, hang in now. All right, next step. Told you that needed to keep the bearings and shims together. This is the ring gear side. These are the ring gear shims and bearing. So I'm going to put those on, and the bearing will come off and go on like that. Now, if you've done this before, you can get a race from another bearing. Use that to tap it on. This one's just a little bit large. This one here is perfect. So I'm going to use this race here to use a hammer and tap it in. Now the high-tech guys, they use a press, but I mean, by the time you set up the press, I can have these tapped on. So I'm going to do that. Then I'll also use the put the ring gear on. A lot of the guys say use a dab of red thread locker on your ring gear bolts. I've never pulled a ring gear apart and had thread locker on it, so I'm going to go a little more conservative and use blue thread locker, because I want to put something on there to keep these from loosening up. But I don't want to use permanent, because if you don't know that there's permanent thread locker on there and you have to heat it up to get it to release, you can actually pull the threads right out of the fastener. So I'm going to use blue to be conservative. So hang in there. I am going to get the camera set up so that you can watch me do this. Okay, got this on here, and I kind of noticed it when I pulled it off, but I thought maybe it was just jacked out of alignment. But now that I got it back on there, this is the original bearing that came off the truck. This thing is shot. I mean, look at all the slop in there. So I've got a spare bearing. I'm going to check the bearing numbers, make sure they're the same. True, I don't have the race for it, but I'm going to take a chance and see that it runs, because I do not want to go, I don't want to wait for a set of bearings to come in. So that bearing is smoke, baby. So let me go ahead and pull that off, and we'll put the other one on. Okay, we got that bearing replaced. I'm not too worried about it. It was the same bearing, same Tompkin part number. I don't think it's going to be an issue with the race, because these differentials are fairly bulletproof. I mean, differentials in general, as long as you keep oil in them. Doesn't even have to be clean oil. As long as you got oil in them, don't overheat them, they're fine. The ring gear, got the ring gear in. These bolts are torqued down to 100 foot-pounds. The cap bolts will be 80 foot-pounds. And so just hang in there, watch me put this thing back into the axle housing, and then we'll check backlash and the pattern. Funny story regarding this truck here. I suppose we put the lunchbox locker in the front early so that my son could do better four-wheeling. I had the CJ, the one that I've shown on a couple other videos that I recently sold. I had the CJ on 37-inch boggers. That thing would go through anything. It was light, a little over 3,000 pounds. So he had this truck as his four-wheeler, and we went out to the swamp here local in Lakeland, and we go into the park. It's a huge park. And we start driving through it, and we're hitting the mud holes as we go. Everything's going well. It's me, my son, and some people from his work, which were in a big Dodge extended cab pick 'em up truck. So we were hitting the mud holes going in, and just like any other time, you know, after you've been out there for a while, you're starting to look at your watch, and you're like, hey, it's going to be getting dark soon. Nobody wants to be stuck out here in the dark. So let's start heading back. And that's, for me, that's always been the kiss of death. It's heading back. I've never broken going out early in the day. I've always broken leaving late in the day. So we can't leave well enough alone. So we've got to hit every mud hole on the way out of the park, right? So I go through this mud hole, no problems. Little CJ, extended wheelbase, lock front and rear, pull right through it. My son, it's his turn to go through, puts the pedal to the metal, the engine screaming, mud is flying, water's flying, everything's flying, and he's going down this swamp, and there's a big hole. We knew the hole was there because I'd already gone through it. So I'm sitting outside the hole watching him take his turn, right? So the truck comes through, mud flying everywhere. Truck didn't have air conditioning at the time, so he's got the window down, he's getting splashed. Everybody's having a great time. The truck hits the hole, boom, right? Goes down, which I expected, right? He hits it at speed. The truck comes back up out of the hole, suspension's flexing, everything's coming up, water's flying, he's coming up out of the hole, right? And so I'm expecting it to land, and when he lands, the driver's side front tire folds up underneath the truck. And I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? Because he's still in the hole, right? He's not on dry ground. So he stops. I'm thinking to myself, he tore the spring off the frame. That's what I'm thinking. Tore the spring off the frame. We're gonna have to leave the truck here and come back and get it later, right? So he shuts the truck off. We go out there, and it's not quite knee deep, but we get there and we find out that he didn't rip the spring off, which was good, because, you know, trying to put a spring on and weld brackets and stuff out in the swamp, not something you want to do. What ended up happening was the universal joint binded on that passenger or the driver front tire. The universal joint binded broke, and then the ears on the universal joint pushed the hub, the whole knuckle, off the axle. Busted both upper and lower ball joints. Fortunately, he stopped in time and he didn't rip the brake caliper hose out. So it was just laying up underneath the truck. So we still had my Jeep and we still had my my son's friend's pick-em-up truck. So what we did is we took the tire off, took the caliper off, took the knuckle, jumped in the truck, drove into town, and it was a parts store. They were nice enough, they had an electric impact gun. I bought 2 ball joints on the bench at the store, installed the ball joints, took it back to the park, and in 2 hours from the time it broke, we had the truck rolling and leaving the park. I was amazed. I mean, that was probably the best out in the boonies fix so far. And everything just came together. We got out of there before it was too dark. We even beat the mosquitoes. Because, you know, as soon as the sun starts to go down in Florida, the mosquitoes come out. So it all ended up being good. The truck is still here. It's been in the family about 12, 13 years now. It was his first vehicle out of high school, because, you know, in my family, driving is a privilege. I'll buy you the first vehicle at the expense that I want to spend, and then you've got to pay the insurance, because the insurance is something that happens every 6 months, right? And so the kid needs the responsibility of knowing, hey, if I'm going to drive, I've got to keep working so I can pay the insurance. So we've had that truck ever since he was approximately just before 18, I believe. And he's been working and paying his insurance, and now he's on his own. And when he moved and relocated, obviously this truck is not very good on gas mileage, or not very economical. So I bought it back because I did not want to give up the truck. It's a nice truck, very little rust on it. There's always work to do on the mechanicals and make it better. But I just thought you guys would enjoy that story about how that thing blew up and we were able to get it fixed. And it's on this truck. Different set of tires though. But you know, we've been through, this is the 3rd set of tires since he blew it up that one time. But it's all fun. That's quality time with the kids. Years from now, I mean, just like my son said when I asked him about that locker, he says, yeah, those were good times, Daddy. Those were good times. So take every opportunity you can, spend it with your kids and your family. Rocky.